It's a big, huge spider web of lies and deception, and we're all trying to put it together.
How the three couples plan to celebrate the new year in paradise turned into a double murder. Welcome to Cold Case Cafe. Today we go back in time to 2018, the month July, and that was when Casey, age 37, and his wife Barbara moved to the Caribbean island of Anguilla, a move which would prove to be deadly. Casey had enrolled in the island's St. James School of Medicine after deciding on a career change. He had previously been in pharmaceutical sales and acting. Most notably, he had a role as a police officer in the soap opera The Bold and the Beautiful. Casey's sister, Debanee MacPherson Pomeroy-Udall, described her brother as a person who lit up the room when he walked in. He was always in a good mood and looking for a fun time. Between Christmas and New Year, Casey would be on winter break from school, so he invited a couple of his friends and their wives to join him and Barbara in paradise. Casey had been friends with Caleb Guillory, 37, and Chuck Gross, also 37, since they were 9. Casey's sister Debanee MacPherson said growing up, Caleb was always over at their house, and same was with Chuck. Along for the adventure also came Caleb's wife, Carly Guillory, and Chuck's wife, Alicia Gross. The party came to an end on December 30, 2018. All three couples returned to Casey and Barbara's apartment around 9 p.m. after having been at a local beach bar. It was then that Casey realized he had forgotten his shoes at the bar. It was just a short walk back, so he went to look for them along with Caleb. Reports from people in the area that night said they witnessed Casey and Caleb at the bar, sharing a drink, and left it unattended while searching for Casey's shoes. Based on what Barbara's lawyer submitted in a claim for his client to receive her husband's life insurance, we get to see her side of the story. Barbara claims that she was with Casey and Caleb at the bar. They had ordered 1 rum, 1 coke, and each drank from it before looking for the shoes. They left it at the bar while they searched the beach. After finding the shoes, they each took another drink from the cup before heading back to the apartment. Caleb collapsed after returning to the apartment, hitting his head as he fell to the living room floor. He stopped breathing shortly after. At 9:49, Alicia Gross went to her neighbors and called emergency services. She told the Royal Anguillan Police that her friend wasn't breathing and he needed an ambulance. When EMS arrived at 10:05, they found Caleb motionless on the living room floor, lying on his back. They noted his right eye was black and blue and swollen. Caleb was pronounced dead on the scene. Soon after this, Casey started having a seizure in one of the bedrooms. He was rushed to the Princess Alexandria Hospital. Casey was pronounced dead at the hospital 15 minutes after his initial seizure had started. Law enforcement had also arrived at the apartment, and it's noted that the 4 other people seemed out of it. They were all taken to the hospital for wellness checks and testing. Once the medical staff cleared all 4, they were taken to the police station and held in custody. A source on the island revealed that cocaine was found in Alicia's makeup bag, and MDMA or MDA was in her purse. No charges have been filed against Alicia at this time for the drugs. Since the night of the incident, the 4 had been held in custody. They were required to pay $40,000 before they could be released. But the victim's family and their private investigator have requested to know what this money was for and where it went. No one was charged, so it doesn't appear this fee was for bail. But those requests have all gone unanswered. They paid the sum and were released on January 4th, 2019. That same day, Barbara would file for her husband Casey's $1.5 million life insurance policy. To date, it still has not been paid out due to the ongoing investigation. Autopsies were started on January 4th, with tissue samples and toxicology reports being ordered. Both coroner reports would be finished on January 7, 2019, with two very different causes of death. Another strange occurrence in this case, the medical examiner had pulled the toxicology reports for the four surviving victims. Caleb's autopsy suggested that Caleb had died from asphyxiation, strangulation, multiple blunt force traumas, and seizures. The strangulation was listed as both ligature and manual. Toxicology reports that Caleb had lethal amounts of MDA and cocaine in his system at the time of his death. Casey's autopsy stated that he died from pulmonary edema, cardiac toxicity, cardiac ischemia, hypothermia, and seizures. Casey's sister Debanee MacPherson said the medical professional that they had to read the death certificate told them that it goes along the lines that he was poisoned. There was also a combination of cocaine and MDA of lethal levels in Casey's system. The amount of MDA was 24 times higher than what someone would typically take in a recreational situation. So it's really unclear why Barbara didn't become ill or die if she drank from the shared cocktail. According to sources, a friend of Barbara's offered to have a private jet bring the four back to the US, along with Caleb and Casey's bodies. Instead, Barbara and Carly had their husbands' bodies sent to St. Martin's Island to be cremated. One question asked a lot in this case is, how were they able to leave the island after the deaths? The surviving friends contended that the Royal Anguillan police gave them two options. Option 1, the four of them could agree with their findings that Casey had overdosed and Caleb had been strangled. If they all agreed, then they could leave. Option 2, if they disagreed with the police's finding, then the police would open a formal investigation and all four of the survivors would be considered suspects and unable to leave the island. The first option seems to suggest murder with Caleb, yet there would be no investigation. The four friends also said that they had been forced to cremate the remains. This narrative tends to make you believe the Royal Anguillan police are beyond corrupt and are attempting to cover up something like they had been poisoned at the bar by a local, possibly. But the FBI doesn't believe that's the situation. They think that the police department was less than efficient and possibly laxer, since the police commissioner and the governor were off the island during the murders. It is unknown what conspired between the four after they were given these options, since none of them are talking. But they all were free to leave Anguilla, so we can assume that they chose option 1. After returning to the United States, the four survivors went to the Pomeroy home in Eagle Point, Oregon, the hometown of where the three men had grown up together. When the four survivors returned and spoke to the family, they all gave the same story, that only Caleb and Casey went to the bar and shared a drink. Casey's stepfather Chuck Pomeroy recalls how Barbara did most of the talking. Right from the beginning, they said they were poisoned. From the very first, it just didn't feel right to me, Chuck Pomeroy says. I remembered that as they got up to leave, Barbara was serious and said, "Hey, do not talk about this. Don't publicize it and talk about it. You'll cause problems." Then when she came back a couple days later, she was very adamant about don't say anything, don't do anything. The second time, we asked something about a memorial and things, and she said no, don't. Casey would not want that. The whole point was she didn't want any notoriety about her. Didn't want the word out that the boys had died. That really didn't sit well with us. End quote. Since then, Barbara has changed her story and added that she had gone with the boys. Since then, Barbara changed her story to add that she had gone with the two guys and shared the rum and coke with them. Barbara also said that when they returned, while the two men were having their medical episodes, she was throwing up in the bathroom. She believes this is what saved her life. Casey's sister says it doesn't make sense at all, and the story has changed. Even more, it keeps changing. Another narrative given by Barbara seems to claim that she was so sick she needed to recover for a few days in the hospital. It was only then after recovering that she realized her husband and Caleb had died days before. Debanee found something intriguing while looking into her brother's death. In an interview, she spoke that her brother had apparently lived a double life in the 10 years prior. While working as an actor in Los Angeles, his agent and all those who worked with him had no idea he was married. What was the state of Casey's and Barbara's marriage though? Debanee had this to say. Barbara was wanting Casey to get a job because she felt like he was taking advantage of her because she was the sole provider for them. So she was wanting him to get a permanent job, and I think that was a strain on their relationship. There was no domestic abuse of any kind in the relationship and no talk of divorce, as far as I know. Barbara wrote an email to friends, making claims that don't seem to be substantiated. She says the police in Anguilla charged her and Chuck with manslaughter, but they didn't follow through with prosecuting as they had suffered enough. I don't understand that. There is no record of any charges being filed in either Casey or Caleb's deaths. Casey's family believes Barbara made this up to get attention and sympathy. A formal coronial inquest was scheduled for early 2019 for the 4 survivors. The coronial inquest is a court hearing where the coroner considers testimony along with the pathological findings to determine the circumstances surrounding the death. The inquest has been rescheduled several times since the 4 witnesses have failed to show up. They and their lawyers sent letters that they were unable to attend. Debanee and others held a fundraising event to help pay for private investigator TJ Ward in his search into the case. Anguilla holds a dark secret. The GoFundMe page says these were not accidental deaths. The stories of what happened that night are inconsistent, and no one has been held accountable for these horrific crimes. Investigator TJ Ward, who also worked on the Natalie Alloway disappearance in Aruba, has been hired by the family. He told TV station Oregon News, "Something is totally wrong. What they're saying happened and what transpired." Barbara, Carly, Chuck, and Alicia sent a statement regarding the fundraiser. Here's a part of it. "We find their pursuits to be replete with misstatements and believe they are unproductive. We are cooperating with appropriate authorities and do not support or sanction this event in any way." So guys, will we ever know what really happened that night in Anguilla? Please let me know in the comment section down below. And if you haven't yet subscribed to Cold Case Cafe, consider doing so. Want to watch a couple more of my videos? Feel free, watch away. Until then, stay safe.